with this image, for example, this is the shape we did yesterday, doing a little bit of the three-dimensional. So I'm just going to take this section and set it off to the side and just show you a way without the 3D modeling, just to help you out. Just taking a rectangular shape. It already has the gradient brought over. So just drawing a rectangular shape. I'm going to keep it with a shift key so that it stays as a square. And let's see if this works here. So now I have this gradient section that I can work with. And I could draw it with the pen tool, but just want to show you some of these different options that come up. In the tools that you have, again, if you need to go into the section to make it advanced so that all of the tools in the window shades will show up for you, and clicking in here, there's a scale tool that has two other pieces. Click on it just to show it to you. I'll open up the window shade, and the scale tool does what it says. The shear tool allows you to change the shape at this angle with the shift key held down. So I'm just going to undo that, and this time just double click on the tool, and if you remember, the angle for the isometric is 30 degrees, so you can see that it can go for either direction. In this case, I'm just going to put a minus sign right in front of it and click that part in there as well. So just click OK, and that'll give you that section 30 degrees for that angle. Now, depending on how accurate I was for here, this is where that's going to stay. You can then take the direct selection tool. Here's the fill and the stroke, so if you need to see, Shift X will switch it so that the stroke has the color, and that just allows you to see through it almost like a preview mode. And if you remember, these were slightly at an angle, and then Shift X places it back there. And here's the gradient. Now that gradient editor works on this, so when you drag this piece across, you can see the action happening here, and sliding it down or moving it in this direction does let you place or take colors off. The square pieces allow the color to be a lot sharper as it goes right to that edge, and you can again adjust all of these pieces. And again, if you just click and drag, it'll reset it to be that section. It's also showing up in the gradient editor right here, so you can go through this piece as well, and it has the angle of the gradient. Everything that's listed in here will show up onto that section, so you can adjust it for that piece. Once you have one of them, then you can just go into the sections. You have these three tools, but then in this case, just going into the reflect, and just double click on the reflect tool. Let's see if I have this selected right. Make sure I have this highlighted first. Thought I did. Double click, so that gives me the preview of it. Just going to copy it and set it right over here. So they do line up pretty easily. And then here's the gradient section for this. Now this section I'm going to make a little darker, and you can see that part. And like I said, this allows you to kind of live edit this right on the screen here, so you can place that piece in there. And if these aren't exactly highlighted, you can adjust them. You have the align tool to bring this over here too if they're not perfectly aligned. That'll give it to that section on the artboard. Click on here, put it to the key selection. It tells you which one it's going to highlight to, and then it bumps it down to fit right in there. Same with this. You can start off just by making a square. You can place it right into that section, take the direct selection tool, and just make sure that you have this point highlighted, and it allows you just to adjust it. Again, it's another function using the pen tool would also be there, but this one's going to have a little bit more light than the other one, so you can stretch these out. One side allows you to move it, one side to stretch it, and you can reset that up there. So that was the previous one from before, taking a look at doing this similar on this section, but this time taking a look, if you do have the gradient, here's the ones that were saved, just a couple of them. And if you take a look inside the swatches panel right here, this is where you can see some of the gradients that were saved. Clicking in here into the library is going to give you the gradients to bring up. So when you take a look at different colors, you can see the pastels, the little book ends for the library, kind of show a little bit of the section for it. So let's say if you bring this one, just leave that open, and again using the Shear Tool, whether you double click on it, it's the preset was there, so click OK, and then a fly out for the double click on the Reflect tool, and copying that, and why this is highlighted, just kind of giving it a selection. And again, I'll keep these connected just a little bit. Select the both of them, and then just make sure this is on the key object. Unless you just want to set it manually, you can. Move these over and up. So it gives you that selection right there. And then taking a shape tool, try the Polygon tool just to bring that one into play. When you draw it, it starts off with 6, but the arrow key allows you just to make 3 pieces right away. And here's where you can just, once you get a piece of this, and there's ways to line everything up here. It's placing that point and the anchor point just with the pen tool and the pointer. Lets you set up that side. Take a look at this. Double click the Reflect tool and copy that, so places that in there pretty easily. And again, this is the lighting, so I'm just using this. As soon as I click on these separate ones, it shows up in my swatches panel as a saved item, and that's where you can then take the gradient and adjust it from here, keeping in mind that you have this selection to place it on there. This allows you to rotate the gradient. Let's move it in here a little bit. So there it is as a shape, as it rotates it. So you can kind of build this up pretty quickly. In this case, when you change it like that, you can save it, but it'll give you this selection to highlight in there as you're going through this section. So let's see if we can adjust this here. So depending on where you place the mouse, it'll stretch it out. If you move it just slightly off, it'll turn into the part that allows you to rotate it. Grabbing the other end allows you to move it. Make sure you don't take too many pieces off of it. And that gives you this. So the keystroke, just holding the command to get the arrow key, and then this brings up the annotator for this part. And again, you can double click on these colors. This will give you the color choice, and it'll bring up the color palette. And if you just click and drag, it'll slide these across each other. If you option, you can duplicate them. This gives you the distance in between the two, so if you wanted a hard-edged gradient for that, command key to select this part. And again, so you just have to get used to the way it's functioning with the rotation, how it grabs it, grabbing this section, and moving it or adjusting it to make it fit within there. And you can always reset your piece right there. So it's not too difficult, but see if you can do a couple to the third one. Again, the first time you did it with the pen tool. This is just using this section, and try to go through and pick some different colorings for this part so you can see a little bit of a transition. Again, here's the Shear Tool. It's already set to 30 degrees. The Reflect tool, just copy it. Here's the shadow for it, G for gradients, so you can start to use some of the keystrokes for it. And you can adjust placing this up. And, we'll adjust this. Now here, the scale tool, you can double click on this one as well. Hit preview. You can click on the shape. It's going to give you the scaling of the strokes on the fill, so that goes in accordance with that. Click OK for this one. And as you place this in here, you can kind of expand this a little bit. So it brings you up to that level. So the scale tool allows you to expand and place things in there for that section. This one I'll just take out, but this one I'll just double click the reflect, copy that, just kind of backtracking a little bit here, placing that in there. So it gives you a lot to work from. And if you come outside of this one, rotating it, it gives you that gradient. And the nice thing is that it does give you that shape. You can actually click on this part and actually rotate this as well, but again, just using the direct selection tool to place the points. Select it once, and you can just place them right where they belong. Right here. And that gives you that section. Gives you some of the coloring at the top. And then just hide this part. Double click the hand tool, puts it into the middle. Tab key takes that out. And here you can see a series. So just kind of getting them set up. There's a total of the 6 that we'll do.